Have you been told you need to stop doing what you love, whether it's exercise, running, or a sport? Well, here at Dynamic, we don't like that answer. In this podcast, we'll talk to leaders in the health and wellness space from Southwest Florida to get the solutions you need to get you back to doing what you love. Welcome to the Dynamic Naples Podcast. What's going on? Dr. Chris here, and today I have a fun one. Well, maybe it's not so fun for some people. It is what causes dad bod. All right, I think a lot of people think weight gain is as simple as too many calories, and I think there's more to it. I know there's more to it than that. So what is dad bod? It's that sort of skinny fat. It's sort of lacking muscle tone in the extremities, a little more belly fat, kind of being a little more pear-shaped. Maybe you were fit and you got a little more pear-shaped after having kids. All right, so what it's not genetic, all right? It's not some sort of sympathy, like you feel bad for your spouse for being pregnant. There's very specific reasons. And by the way, a lot of the same rules apply to women as well. It's not just a guy thing, it's just dad bod's kind of funny. So what causes muscle loss and fat gain? In a nutshell, it's living a low testosterone lifestyle. What does that mean? Why does your body stop producing as much testosterone? It's not normal, by the way. You're not supposed to, as you get older, just drop in testosterone. That's there's a lot of things that we sort of chalk up to age that are not really an age-related thing necessarily. There's this concept of the exposome, which is some accumulation of basically insults to your body, both internally and externally. Over time, they start to catch up to you and accrue. And then sort of the wheels fall off the bus eventually. So testosterone is a great example of this. You can be in your 50s and still be producing high levels of testosterone. So what are some of these things I'm talking about? Well, by far, number one is lack of sleep. Right? So this is really hard for people to hear because year one of having a baby, it is near impossible to sleep. I mean, I can't even imagine how the mothers deal with it because I know for me as a father, it was really hard. And I wasn't even breastfeeding. So the way I see it is we kind of have two modes. We either have building stuff up or breaking stuff down. Right? Our sympathetic nervous system breaks stuff down. Our parasympathetic system builds stuff up. Right? So when you're sleeping, you're in a parasympathetic state and you're recovering. So if you did do a workout, you're recovering from sleep, from being in the parasympathetic mode. If you are not sleeping, you're in a sympathetic state, most likely, and things are breaking down like muscle. So I would say it kind of starts with lack of sleep, and then things spiral out of control from there, sort of downward spiral. Right? Stress is another huge one. And now stress can mean a lot of different things. Here I'm talking about the stress of having children, sort of the mental stress. On top of that, now you're poorly slept, so you're now more easily agitated. This will also cause testosterone to plummet. All right. And by the way, one night of poor sleep, if you're like 5 hours of sleep or less, that day you're basically in a diabetic state, which makes sense because you're in a fight-or-flight state. So your body secretes sugar into the bloodstream, so you can be in a fight-or-flight state. So you're basically in a diabetic state. That over time compounds, and then things start to happen. Right. Your thyroid can go low. So low thyroid and high blood sugars tend to go hand in hand. So now you're stressed, you're underslept, your testosterone's plummeting, your blood sugars are high, and you're fatigued, right? You have no motivation to exercise, right? Not only because you're poorly slept, but because now your thyroid is also low. By the way, if you are developing skin tags, like in your armpit or neck, that is a sign of becoming diabetic or pre-diabetic. So now you've got lack of adequate movement, right? So then you get more muscle loss, more fat gain. Now you're not burning as many calories, most likely. Again, the wheels are beginning to fall off the bus. And then, so a lot of people fall into the child's finally asleep. Let's get in bed and watch some Netflix. Okay. This just stacks on top of everything I've already said. So circadian rhythm disruption is a big deal. It's going to be really hard to fall asleep if your circadian rhythm is off. Circadian rhythm is set by sunlight in the morning, like real sunlight first thing in the morning. That sets it. And then staying away from blue light, from TVs, cell phones, iPads, things like that at night. That really will inhibit your natural production of melatonin. So now it becomes harder to fall asleep. Plus, if you're watching anything that's somewhat engaging, especially the news, stay away from the news. I mean, I personally just cut out the news altogether in my life. That will also put you into fight or flight mode. So you're going to be pumping more sugar into the blood. So it all starts accumulates. You're diabetic, hypothyroid, low energy, low testosterone. Boom! Now you've graduated to dad bod. Oh, then of course nutrition, right? A lot of people screw up the nutrition components. The biggest offenders in anyone's diet are seed oils, which are laden in everything, unfortunately, so they're really hard to avoid. High fructose corn syrup and processed sugars, really terrible. And for a lot of people, gluten. Now, so gluten can create intestinal permeability, which can then in turn trigger autoimmunity. It seems like people tend, unless you have celiac, they tend to become gluten sensitive later in life. Why? Because of everything I just talked about. When your testosterone is low and you have high blood sugars and your thyroid's off, you become hypersensitive. And now gluten is bothering you. In a sense, you've become a little more fragile. So what do? You got to reverse the cycle. You got to start to spin upward instead of downward. You got to get a little more parasympathetic. You reverse everything, but don't make the mistake of swinging the pendulum the other direction. Do the low-hanging fruit first. Do the easiest things first, the things you can have the most control over first. Now, sleep is probably the number one in terms of like the 80-20 rule. You'll get the biggest bang for your buck if you can sleep. By the way, I put together a free guide with 12 tips on how to optimize your sleep. For example, getting cold enough, dark enough. I got 12 tips on that with actionable things. I'll put a link in the show notes on that. Now, okay, that one can be really hard in that first year. So what else can you do? So prioritize becoming more insulin sensitive. What does that mean? There's a lot of ways to become insulin sensitive because abundance of insulin can make you gain weight. So you want to stay insulin sensitive and not become diabetic. By the way, once you start putting on fat cells secrete inflammation. They're like an endocrine organ. So the inflammation causes weight gain causes inflammation, and it's a vicious cycle. So getting insulin sensitive is very important. So one simple thing you can do that I think most people can handle is just going for a walk after a meal. That will do a number on dropping your blood sugars and making you more insulin sensitive. Now, not to hop on the cold plunge sort of bandwagon. Well, I guess I am. I've been doing it for a while. One of the main reasons I love it is because it doesn't take long. 2 minutes, right? 2 minutes is all you really need. So if you are like so stressed and have no time, I'm sure you can find 2 minutes. It can be a little set up to put some ice in your bathtub, whatever. Or you find someone, just Google, cold plunge near me, pay the $20 or whatever, hop in there for a couple minutes. That also will dramatically drop your blood sugars. I know this for a fact. I wore a continuous glucose monitor for a month. And every time I get in, you jump in, and it's a little stressful at first, so you do get this little tiny bump of blood sugar immediately. And then as soon as you catch your breath, the blood sugar then drops. And then for a couple hours, it stays pretty low. It's kind of like exercise. Exercise, you elevate your heart rate while doing it, but over time, with your body's adaptation, you can enjoy a lower resting heart rate. Same idea with cold plunging, just with sugars. All right, then once you get hooked on that, because basically everybody does get hooked on it because it feels amazing, and also, by the way, another secondary benefit of cold plunging is it starts to make your sleep better. Right. So, by the way, sleep is not just quantity. It's not just how long, but it's how deep. Right. Cold plunging will help you sleep deeper. Then now you're starting to spiral upwards. Right. So now you can start to have a little more momentum. You have a little more energy. Now you can start getting to weight training. Now, weight training is not just about burning calories. This also makes you more insulin sensitive. So what happens is when your blood sugar is high, your body will secrete insulin to push the sugar into the the liver, and into your muscle. Now, the liver is much smaller than all your skeletal muscle, so majority of blood sugars reside in the form of glycogen in the skeletal muscle. meaning the more skeletal muscle you have, the bigger like a sink that you can take or you can soak up all the sugar. So that's how you become more insulin sensitive. That's one of the reasons why resistance training is superior to cardio when it comes to losing weight. It's not just a calorie game. If you want to double down on becoming more insulin sensitive, probably the easiest thing you can do is to avoid breads, pastas, grains, all the high glycemic index foods. So now you're going to start burning more fats because you're going to naturally be in a more low carb state. So your body needs energy from somewhere, so it'll start pulling it from fat. And the secondary benefit there is now if you're not doing breads and pastas, you're at least going low gluten or even going no gluten. So if you have any autoimmune issues that are starting to rise, they should start to back down and reverse. The other big component, of course, that we talked about before is stress. So you have to either eliminate what you can and or mitigate what you can. There's a lot of ways to do this. There's meditation, yoga, having some sort of light aerobic movement, like just going for a walk, can be very good for stress. And again, this is where the cold plunge shines. So once again, it's really good for stress because it is kind of a hard thing to do. So if you're doing that, suddenly the things like, whatever your child may have done to make you angry starts to become more like background noise. Then, of course, you want to continue to optimize your sleep, set your circadian rhythm, respect it. You should really prioritize sleep, number one. So there you have it. There's your list of to-do items to improve insulin sensitivity and therefore improve testosterone secretion. So you want to get your step count up. You can do that simply by walking after a meal. You want to get into cold plunging or exposure training. So if you don't like cold plunging, you can get a lot of value out of sauna or doing both back and forth are really good. Getting adequate sleep, prioritizing sleep, protecting your sleep, guard that, and getting adequate movement. Avoiding high glycemic foods such as breads and pastas, and really dialing in your circadian rhythm. So just of that list, pick the thing that you think you can do the easiest and start there, and then start to stack things on. If you try to do them all at once, it's just you're going to fail. You can't set yourself up for failure because then your self-esteem will just plummet and you'll blame yourself. It's just not going to work. So pick the low-hanging fruit. Sleep is probably the best one if you can do that. If not, I would start walking after meals or cold plunging. Your testosterone will start to climb, you'll have more energy, and everything will start to double down. So make sure to go to the show notes and find my guide on how to optimize sleep. It's a free download. I just need your email and I can send it to you. Thanks very much. Why guess when you can test? Do you get hangry or crash after a carb-heavy meal? These could be indicators that there is a dysfunction in your blood glucose regulation. If left unchecked, it can lead to irreversible changes. If you catch it quick enough, you can make diet and lifestyle changes that will get your levels where they need to be. 88% of Americans are pre-diabetic and don't know it. Diabetes underpins many of the pathologies we deal with in this country, such as obesity, high blood pressure, heart disease, and stroke. For some reason, it is rarely screened with your physician, and if they do test for blood glucose, it's usually with an A1C or a fasting glucose, which can sometimes give you a false negative. NutriSense is a company that supplies continuous glucose monitors. We've paired with NutriSense to get you real-time data to see how your physiology responds to glucose. The NutriSense app lets you track your daily activity to see how food, sleep, exercise, and stress impact your glucose. You can log or import this data into the NutriSense app to see the effect on your blood glucose levels as soon as it happens. Use the code DrChris25 for $25 off your order today. Do you have unexplained pain? Or do you wonder just how healthy you are? When was the last time you had your blood tested? Blood chemistry analysis is a great tool to stay ahead of any health conditions, and now you can have control of your health with Let's Get Checked. Let's Get Checked is an incredible company that sends blood tests to your home. You can choose from over 30 different tests, whether that's thyroid function, testosterone, micronutrient, cholesterol, or C-reactive protein, which is a marker for inflammation. It is sent to you with free shipping and you get your results in 2 to 5 days. No physician referral needed. Use the code DPT25 for 25% off. You can find links in the show notes. Did you know that you can get started with physical therapy without a physician's referral? Physical therapists don't just solve pain, we get down to the root cause and keep it from coming back. We also discuss all things health, such as nutrition and lifestyle changes. If you feel that you could use some help, let's get on a free consult call. Go to www.dynamicnaples.com and sign up for a free call. Also, if you like this podcast, please give us a rating wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps us spread the message. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.